All righty. How you doing? Well, I don't see anybody yet, but I'm sure that's going to show up pretty soon. I'm sure there'll be thousands of people. I plan to, of course, break the internet. And if you're watching this at a later time, welcome back. And this will be my very first live session in a very long time. So we'll wait for some folks to show up, and maybe I can edit this. I'm not sure. This is all very new to me, but if I can edit it and then put up some stuff for a video later on for you guys, I'd be more than happy to. Otherwise, we just talk a little bit about what's going on in baking for me. Hopefully, your baking is going well. Mine is going really well. I'm working on some stuff, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. I'm going to tell you about a book that I'm really enjoying, and just kind of hang out and talk about baking. So I haven't seen anybody yet. I'm hopefully we'll see somebody very soon. But here we are. It's 3 o'clock. It's time for baking, and I wonder if I can share my screen. I would think maybe you can't do that. No, it says I'm looking at the side of the screen, and there are several buttons, and it says you don't have access to this feature. Oh, okay. I'm guessing maybe you gotta pay for it. That's very common, I would think. Uh, but um, but here we are, and so we'll see what happens. Um, let's see what else we can do here. Let's see if I can copy this and then put it in here. And bear with me; it shan't be long. If I can move my hmm, okay. Hmm, interesting. I might have messed it up by going on early. I think I went on early and then ended it. Hopefully that did not ruin the stream. But if it did, then we will try it again another time. Um, hmm. Let's see here. Yeah, I would think how many live streams could you possibly have? And hey, Sue, how you doing? Are you on online? Excuse me for the scratchy throat. I see one of my former students, Sue. Hey, she's online. All right, cool. And you can hear me okay? Because I got to say this is so new for me. But I think we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Sue was one of my students a few years back. It's probably a few years back now, um, at Escoffier, and I'm sure Sue has graduated by now. When did you graduate, Sue? And I'm looking at the chat. So if you do come online, you can always use the chat function to put in something. I wonder if can you talk back to me at all? I guess a long time ago she says. There's no way for you to talk to me though, is there? Or can I add a camera? I guess they keep saying that I don't have access to any channels. Oh well. But thank you so much for coming, Sue. I appreciate that. And Sue recently watched one of the videos on English muffins, and she went ahead and made the English muffins. I think didn't you make? Yeah, you made the English muffins, and she was telling me about the fact that she was using. Yeah, Zoom is good too, but I want to do more on YouTube. I like YouTube a lot. But let's talk about your English muffins too. She had to use an electric stove, and electric, as she mentioned, can be super tricky. And one of the things that I find, and I have not been, I didn't grow up with cast iron, but I got to say, in the last couple of years, I've really gotten into cast iron a lot. And so I use it for a lot of cooking now, not just for baking, but a lot of cooking. And what it's nice is you can keep a relatively low temperature and keep it really even the whole time. So what I do is I just put it on low. I mean, just as low as it will go. And what it does is it does cook things. It will cook, but very slowly. Now she says that the English muffins is very good, and I appreciate that. I'm glad you tried the English muffins. Um, and but they were a little on the dark side, and I think she would agree with me on that one. But man, I bet they still tasted awesome just the same. But try that. Try the cast iron. You can do cast iron on electric, right? You know, it's worth it because a you don't need a lot of fat on the cast iron to do the English muffins, because all you're doing is just kind of slowly putting heat into the center and maybe a little bit of browning on the bottom, but that's about it. So that you did go to the cast iron after the first pan. That's smart. I'm glad you did that. That's awesome. And then you also use, this is interesting too. I haven't made a lot of, why am I out of focus? There we go. Or maybe because a cat walked in the room or something. Anyway, I haven't made a dough with buttermilk in a million years, but so did it add a little bit of tang to the finished product, Sue? I'm gonna guess it did. I used to make it like a buttermilk with dill or something. I think it was. It was really good, and it was quite tasty. But yeah, but I don't use a lot of buttermilk. But I think it was one of those things you probably had buttermilk left over, and it happens, and you end up doing it. Little tips too: if you do get another chance to bake with buttermilk, try the biscuits I put up a while back too. The biscuits are outstanding as well. Um, are you a biscuit fan? Oh, I see some kitties here. Where do you go? Oh, we have two kitties. The orange one, if you see the orange one walking around, can you see him back there? There he's laying down, very relaxed. That is Sammy. And then if you see a gray one, the gray one is behind the guitar over there. The gray one is Freddie. So why they're in here, I don't know. Usually they don't come in when I'm doing anything like this on the computer, but here we are. We're all one big baking family. So you did see the biscuits, though. I would highly recommend trying the biscuits. Um, the English muffins I got from here in Chicago is from an old baker that I used to work with, and he taught me how to make them really nice and slow. Because the way I learned was this was in back in school that you just whip and whip and whip and whip, and it's a really weird process because it's such a wet dough. Well, I learned to do it nice and slow. The biscuits, though, I learned from a baker down in New Orleans named, of course, now I can't remember her name. She is, oh man, senior moment. Anyway, she had a restaurant called Willa Jean, and she doesn't work there anymore, but she is quite an excellent baker. And she makes these terrific buttermilk biscuits. But the key to the biscuit, though, is to grate frozen butter into the flour, and it's just awesome. So I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with the chunks of butter in the biscuits, but the grated butter, I have to say, it is better. She says your roommate isn't. Your roommate is not. I missed the comment. Maybe I'm probably went on from there. Best compliment was from my head of maintenance who told me he won't be buying Thomas anymore. Good job on that, Sue. I like that. Oh, and she grated butter. That's what it was. You said you grated the butter in the English muffins. That's awesome. I think that did it give it a little flakiness to it. I would think it would give it at least a partial flakiness. That's pretty cool. Well, that's great to hear. That is terrific. Um, yes, I used to work at Escoffier, and I left there last year. I think it was around May. And since then, I have been kind of bouncing around the internet, as it were, and I've been doing a lot of things. I like working from home. Obviously, that's a must-have these days. Not everybody can do that, and that's one of those fun things that I enjoy doing. And I've been making these videos. I hope you've been enjoying the YouTube videos as well. And I've tried to mix it up between some quick tips and some pastry and bread and stuff. But you know where my heart lies. It lies in the bread. That's where it's really my favorite. And I got to tell you about a book that I just got maybe a few weeks ago, The Sourdough School by Vanessa Kimball. And I don't know if you've seen this book at all, but it is highly recommended. And it's one of those books where you can actually sit down. I sit in my easy chair and really kind of enjoy the reading. It's not a lot of extra reading, but it is kind of fun to kind of get into the finer points of it. And what she talks about is, kind of choosing your method, the mixing that you do, all this kind of thing. And it's not really so much about the idea that it's a bunch of recipes. I mean, there are recipes in here, obviously, but oh, and I just happened to turn to this one too, Scandinavian buttermilk sourdough. So if you're a fan of sourdoughs, I don't know if you get into sourdough. I really love playing with sourdough. So the sourdough school, and she's also got another one for pastries and for sweeter doughs like Danish, or if you were to do something a little fattier, she has one for those kind of doughs as well. Vanessa Kimball is the author. Um, but I was going to say sourdough is one of those things. Man, I had the hardest time getting it started when I first was baking because I thought, oh well, I'll learn. It can't be that hard. And so I looked at a lot of different recipes, and I started working on oh, what was her name? Of course, I can't remember anybody's names these days. The author, she ran a restaurant out in California, um, and she did some beautiful videos for Julia Child. Anyway, one of her things that she talked about was that uh, she uh, she would start a sourdough starter, and it would smell awful, it would look awful, it didn't seem like it was working, and she'd throw it away. And you almost everybody follows the same path and does the same thing, where they start it and then they don't continue. And it takes a few tries, maybe even over the course of a year or 2 years, um, to get it started. But I would highly recommend trying it. And really, and on my website, chefinstructortom.com. Of course, you've been there a million times. But if you go on my website, there are sourdough instructions in the further learning section, as it were, and it's really simple. It seems like it's daunting, but it's really, really not hard at all. Go on the website and check it out. And if you need some help, then just drop me a line. I'll be glad to help you with it. The sourdough starter I use is just flour and water. When I first started, they said, "Oh, you got to put grapes in it, or you got to put some sort of weird like milk or some kind of thing to make it go sour." And I'm like, that seems kind of weird. So I tried it without, and it works great. It works great. So what does flour and water do? Well, it actually decays. It falls apart. It breaks up, and it kind of becomes in its component parts. In that process, it then attracts wild yeast from the air. There's wild yeast all around us. Then that wild yeast starts to get activated in the flour and water, and it gets fed, and it produces CO2 gas, and you're good to go. Well, in the process, it is kind of a longer process. The first week, you don't do anything. And then the second and third weeks, you have to feed it every day, or maybe every other day or so. But here's the weirdest thing. And you folks who use sourdough probably know what I'm talking about, or maybe you don't. A lot of people end up feeding it every day. I don't. So I don't bake with it every day. And lately I've been working on so many other projects. I haven't had time to make any sourdough in a while. But what I did was I just keep it, I keep about 300, 400 grams in the back of the refrigerator, much to Margie's dismay. She's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's a sourdough starter. Don't touch. Don't throw it away." Uh, it is uh, it is something you can keep in the back of your fridge. So what I do is I'll pull it out when I'm ready. The day before I'm ready to mix my sourdough bread, and I will take only maybe 50 grams or so, depending on the size of the batch I want to make. But a very small batch, small bit of sourdough starter, 50 grams. And so now I'm left with 250 grams. If I have 300 when I start, I take 50, I've got 250. I put the 250 back in the fridge. But here's what I do, I make something called a levain, Levain. Levain is something you can do where you mix the flour and water and add this little bit of sourdough starter into your bread or into your levain. So I have 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of water, and 50 grams of levain. This will make me enough to get me started for uh, upwards of a kilo of flour. No, it's just me and the wife. I don't need a lot of bread. That'll make me 4 loaves of bread very easily. So that very, very small amount of levain will take care of the whole process, the whole batch. The next day, that levain is now bubbling over the top. It's got tons of CO2 gas in it. It's also a lot of flavor. So not only does it have the CO2 gas, it also and the yeast, it also has lactobacilli bacteria, which is where the flavor comes from. That's where you get your acetic acid that kind of tastes kind of sour. That's the sourdough, and also lactic acid, which kind of makes it a little more tender bread, and it just makes it a very, very nice, soft but chewy kind of bread. It's delicious. Highly recommended. So then, when the next day, once you have this, what I call active sourdough starter, and we've taken it out of the fridge, it was in the fridge, it was cold, and then we made it active. Once it's active, it's good to go. And you can add then, so if you started with, say, and I like to do 20% um, starter in my bread. So I start with 1,000 grams of flour, a kilo. I use 200 grams of this active sourdough starter, and then 20 grams each. I'm sorry, so not each, 20 grams of salt. So we have flour, salt, levain, or some sort of leavener, and then we also have how much water. Now, the hydration in that dough is really, really important too. So that's something else that this book, this sourdough school, really talks a lot about hydration. You can make a bread with only 60% water, so that would be to 1,000 grams of flour, that would be 600 grams of water, or as I might like to go to 75%, which is going to put me at 750 grams of water. So there you go. So definitely, yeah. And Sue says she's going to reach out about the sourdough starter after she moves. So and yeah, it's not too hard to move sourdough starter. It's pretty resilient. You only need a little bit. In fact, I had a student reach out, another Sue. I don't know if Sue will see this, but Sue down in Florida, it was moving. She was bringing some sourdough starter somewhere, and what she did was she spread it on parchment paper. If you've got sourdough starter that you may not be able to move the liquid, but what if you were to dry it out? Put it on parchment paper, let it dry out for 2 or 3 days, and the yeast will stay active on the inside. I mean, it's really relatively dormant, but then you let it dry out, you crumble it up, and now it's dry. What's really cool about this is if you are traveling or you're using the airline system, such as it is today, you can't bring on liquids, right? And especially they don't want to see something like sourdough starter. They go, "What the heck is that?" I got to tell you a story in a second about some yeast I brought once, but um, they do not want you to bring sour starter on an airplane. But if you bring dry, crumbly sourdough starter, when you get to your destination, you add water and flour to it, and you revitalize it, and it's wonderful. So something you can do. Now, Sue says she last time she made it, she stored it in the fridge. Developed black wick liquid would separate it from the sour starter. She says that it can't be right. Guess what, Sue? It is right. So um, the black liquid is actually alcohol, or we call it hooch, on top of the sour starter. I'm just saying it. You could stir it back in, you could pour it off, but that sour starter did not go bad. It was just fine. The black liquid does tell me it was in there for a pretty good long time. But it didn't get hurt. It's fine. So I'm sure you threw it out, right? And everybody does that. That's extremely common. I was guilty of the same thing when I started too. So, but get back to it. Try it again. You know, talking about traveling, this was funny. There was one year we were traveling out to San Francisco to visit some family and friends, and we were going to have a big party out on the coast in, I think it was Point Reyes. If you've ever been to Point Reyes, it is a gorgeous part of the country, and they had a house rented out there. And I said, "Oh, I'll make some bread." So of course, I couldn't just buy yeast out there. I mean, I should have, but I brought fresh yeast, or what they call compressed cake yeast. And so I brought a pound of yeast, which looks surprisingly like C4 explosive, which you really don't want to bring that on an airplane. And so I said, no, 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 officer, it's yeast. It's just fresh yeast. And they're looking at it. They pulled me aside. They pulled me off of the of the security line. And this was, I think, I want to say it was post 9/11, so a little scary in that respect. But yet they went, yeah, don't bring this anymore. But they let me through. I taught the kids how to make bread. We did all kinds of fun breads the whole weekend, and it was a good time. But yeah, I would say I do not recommend traveling with that sort of thing. Just getting some messages here. I thought perhaps some folks were coming on. But I'm so happy that Sue stopped by. Thank you so much for that, Sue. I do appreciate you coming by. What was I going to say? Do you have any other questions, Sue? Things you want to talk about? Take a little beverage here. Kind of reminds me of the old live sessions we would have at Escoffier. And what people might think that online culinary school was a brand new thing for the pandemic. It was not. We got started in must have been 2015, and it was a great school. It still is a great school. Still really great people there. What is your question, Sue? You have some questions? So yeah, so I was there for I think 6 years, and the students were terrific. And prior to that, just if you don't know the history, um, I had worked for a culinary school here in Chicago, Le Cordon Bleu. Before that, it was the Cooking and Hospitality Institute of Chicago. And so I've been teaching baking either in person or online. I guess this is still in person for 25 years. So I think I got a little bit of experience. Savory babkas, interesting idea. Okay, so babka, if you don't already know what a babka is, typically it's going to be a relatively rich sweet dough, or yeast dough. I should preface that, make sure it's a yeast dough, and it's rolled out, and then filling is on the inside. And you can do a number of different things. You can braid it, you can roll it like a jelly roll, and then cut it in half and braid that. I would hopefully you are googling the images for babka right now. But typically, a filling might be chocolate, almonds, some sort of sweet filling. But as Sue mentions here, relatively low moisture fillings, because if your moisture is too high inside the dough, it's just going to steam, and you're going to get this gummy, nasty dough on the inside. But I have some ideas for fillings for savory ones. Do you have an idea of what you want to do savory? Typically, like I said, chocolate and cinnamon is very most common. And you're successful with that one already, Sue? I'm going to take that as a yes. Yeah. So the moisture level needs to be relatively low. If you have vegetables in there, cook them down. Something I was thinking about was like spinach. We just we went to a Greek restaurant last week, and we did spanakopita, and it was delicious. And spanakopita, a little bit of feta, spinach, garlic, onion, that kind of thing. Wouldn't that be a lovely savory babka? So you could have a spread that goes on the inside, but you're going to cook down your spinach, squeeze out all the extra moisture, keep it really low, and then put it on the inside, and then roll it up like a jelly roll. The key, though, is to have some sort of binder on the inside, something to hold it all together. And she mentioned spinach and artichoke. Excellent choice. But maybe a little bit of cheese in there, too. Um, a low moisture cheese, even just like a little mozzarella or something like that, just to kind of give it some sort of body to hold it together. I know it's a hardship. I have to put cheese in my bread. Oh, that's so sad. But when you roll it up and you slice it and then you braid it together, oh, it's so tasty. So yeah, I would say thumbs up to the savory babka. Gruyere would be perfect. Yeah, Gruyere is a nice low moisture cheese you could use, and it melts awesome. And I'll bet you get that nice cheese pull when you pull a piece off too. The one thing I will mention that a lot of folks, and I'm sure yours is very good. The one thing I think see most people doing is underproofing their babka. So sometimes when I get a babka, and I'll be nice unless I'm paying for it, because if I'm paying for it, then you're going to hear the wrath of Tom. But what I do is I proof it long enough because I want it to open up on the inside. If you don't proof it long enough, it's very dense and gummy and not so nice. I did one a while back, was a like a honey pecan or something like that, and it just came out so beautifully. But it took a long time to proof. Whereas you might proof something normally, just like a loaf of bread, for proof it for an hour, hour and a half or so. This went maybe 4 or 5 hours of proofing. It took a long time because A, you've got the extra fat in the dough, and B is the sugar. And people always say, "Oh, sugar doesn't that make it go faster?" No, in fact, it actually holds back your yeast a little bit and slows the whole process down. So think about that. And then you can also, once you get a little bit better at it, make a sourdough babka. Pretty awesome. Uh, I would say another, yeah, well, overnight might be a little bit long. If you overnight proof in the refrigerator, you could do that and then let it come back to room temperature before you baked it. You could do that. But I was going to say, you could also put a little bit of glaze on top when you're finished, either if it was a cheese glaze or some sort of shiny topping for it. That seems more, I guess, more for sweet ones. But I'm trying to think what you would put on if you were doing a savory one. I don't know. Lots of different ways. You could do like an herb butter on top or something like that. Many ways to go. But so you're going to do spinach artichoke. I think that's an excellent choice. I have to tell you one more thing before we wrap up here. Is this summer we are having so much fun with that pizza machine. I got the Uni pizza machine. Mine is the Karoo 12-inch, and there are bigger ones, there are smaller ones, but mine's kind of a medium one. And we had some friends over on Thursday or Friday, made some pizzas, and I got to say, one of my favorite pizzas that I made. I there was one day that I had nothing else left in the house. All I had, but I wanted to make pizza. I had pizza dough, but not many ingredients. And I had some cheese. I had Munster cheese. Now, most people don't put Munster on a pizza, but I thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. It's gonna melt, right? It's gonna be delicious. But I had marinated artichokes from a jar. I had mushrooms, and I tell you the truth, that's like my favorite new pizza. And I gave it to my guests on Thursday or Friday last week, and they went nuts. They said, "This is terrific." They really dug it. And we made all kinds of. We made margarita pizzas, sausage and cheese, and just all kinds of different pizzas. But I still think that's one of the fun ones, and it's vegetarian. So I mean, it's got the cheese in it, not vegan, but it is way tasty. Highly recommended. What are you baking this weekend, Sue? Anything fun? Well, maybe she'll have one more thing for us. She's gonna try that. Good. Well, I was gonna say my time is running out here, but I did want to wrap it up here, and I really want to. Yeah, she's the baker. Oh, I got you. Okay, you're working hard. Well, I'm going to take some time off for right now, but I really wanted to thank first my only and best guest is Sue. I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope more folks do come next time. But hopefully, you're watching this maybe in the archive, kind of. Going, wow, I should have shut up for this thing. This could have been fun. And I think you'll enjoy it if you come next time. So we'll have more of these, and I will let you know more as we go on. And a happy and safe Fourth to everyone, especially you. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. And we'll see you next time. Later, guys.